Hi there. Thank you so much for joining me on the Inspirational Educators podcast. I am Nancy McHale, educational coach and speaker, and I'm so glad you're joining me today. So, during the summer months, I'm going to slightly shift my content to maybe topics that can serve your teacher and your personal life. Summer is typically for taking breaks and from your classroom and everything. And whether you're continuing to work through the summer or maybe take it off, it's always nice to change it up and take a break. Now, I am going to start posting these podcast episodes on YouTube. So if you are a YouTube person and like to watch, you can click the link in the bio and it will take you to the YouTube channel. So, have you ever felt like you are working on something and you're having a hard time completing it? Like you're working on just struggling for some, like you're you're working and you're just struggling for some reason. You don't quite know what it is, but it's challenging to complete the task that you're trying to finish, even though you may have completed that task in the past or a similar task with ease. So I've come to learn that this happens to me when I'm about to make a breakthrough or it's the opportunity to challenge myself. Sometimes I don't quite know that I'm being challenged or it's like the threshold for me to grow in that moment. But now that I'm aware of it, I know and it's easier to catch. And although it is challenging in the moment, like when I'm trying to complete a task and I stall or hesitate, knowing that's what's standing in my way, that the fact that I'm being challenged helps me like helps me know that I'm going to come out of it stronger and grow from what it is I'm doing, and that in turn helps me to keep going. So I'll give you a couple of examples, and it might seem drawn out, but bear with me. I promise it will all come together. So first example is for me personally, I work out about 4 times a week. I lift weights. I really enjoy it, and when I don't do it, I actually miss it. It's become part of my life and a necessity for me at this point. Like for example, last week I took the week off. Well, I didn't mean to take the week off of working out, but I did. It was the end of the year for my kids, and they had a bunch of events, and it was my son's birthday, so we were really busy with that, and I didn't work out. And towards the end of the week, and mind you, I also knew I needed a break from working out. I just felt like my body needed that break, so it worked out. However, towards the end of the week, I realized I've missed working out, and like my body needs it, right? Even though the break was good, I knew I needed it. Anyway, sometimes I drag through my workouts. I just don't have the motivation, or I'm just missing that something that keeps me going. When I think about it, yes, I can be tired or just unmotivated that day, but sometimes it's because I know I should be lifting heavier and pushing myself. Okay, second example. So I'm working on a pretty major project for my business. It's still under wraps, but many times when I'm working on that project, I just stop and hesitate. I know in those moments, my hesitation is about to be a breakthrough or leading up to a breakthrough. Like if I'm writing something out or working on something, I'm just like I kind of stop and I hesitate, take a deep breath, and I'm just like, oh, I can't keep going. Like I feel like I can't keep going. I know that like something's about to come out, or like I need to push myself, or I'm being challenged, or I know that I need to say something that's going to make a really big difference, like in my work that I'm doing. So, my point in all this is that we humans constantly want to and should be trying to improve, get better, and challenge ourselves. Unfortunately, at times we might stop for the wrong reasons. we might stop because it gets too hard, or we think it's getting boring, or because we're unmotivated. We think it's not right for us. And here I'm talking about when you're working on something, maybe you're trying to get to the next level. And again, this could be in your educator part of your life. Maybe you're working on lesson plans or a new project, or like you want to come up with a new system in your classroom, or if you're an administrator and you want to come up with a new plan, or again, in your personal life, maybe you're trying to be a more present parent, or a better, you know, uh, sister, son, daughter, son, whatever it might be. You're just trying to always get better, right? So at those moments, like when we're trying to get better, there's a limit where it doesn't, become easier to get better anymore. It's like you're at this point where you need to keep going and push through that tough moment to get to the other side. I hope I'm making sense. In my head, I'm making sense, but I know that this can be such like a, abstract way of thinking. But this is something that I want to talk about because I've come to learn about this over the years for myself, and I wish I knew this earlier so that it can help me get to the next level faster. Now, again, this concept of breaking through and challenging ourselves goes for all aspects in our life, like I just mentioned. And to be honest, I chose this topic today because I feel like I've personally been challenged extra lately, and I think by being aware of it, it's helpful. And the thought that if you're struggling with something, maybe this is what could be happening with you. If It could be that when you're starting to plan a new project for your class, you hesitate. You stop and sort of freeze. That right there is you being challenged. But the thing is, you have to push through. So I like to provide tips and practical things that could help you. So here are some things that have helped me push through when I hesitate or want to stop a task I know will benefit me. So So the first tip is to just keep going, even if it's not good. So I'll give you an example. Writing is not like my strongest suit. Actually, just typing and writing, right? I prefer to speak. Um, and so when I write, sometimes I hesitate, right? Definitely gotten better over the years that I'm aware of it, but I just like, some people I feel like write so beautifully and they make the words come together, but it doesn't really come out that natural to me. So sometimes, like, especially when I'm writing and I'm writing something thought provoking or a new concept or a new plan, and I'm writing and writing and I stop and I just hesitate and I'm just like, oh, this is challenging. I'll just keep going. I'll just keep writing, even if it's not good. I will remind myself that I can literally push myself through it, write down exactly what I want to say, and then go back and edit it. Nobody has to read exactly what is coming out of my mind, right? Like I can go back and edit it. I could take it out if I need to, but just get it out on paper. I always tell myself it's better to edit than come up with new information or to write. So I like going back and editing. So just do it. So, if this is something that you're working on, like again, a new project or something, like let's say you want to create a project for your next lesson, right? You're planning it out, you kind of stop, you freeze. So I would just recommend, like, get it out. Anything that's in your head that has to do with the project, get it out on paper, and then you can go back and edit it. Number 2, timing myself. And I've spoken about this a few times, but I really like to time myself with everything, honestly. Like especially if I'm struggling with something, I'll tell myself, okay, I'm going to work on it for another 15 minutes and then I can stop. Sometimes I go over that 15 minutes and I don't even realize it. Sometimes I'm looking forward to those 15 minutes ending and I stop, I get up, I go do something else, I come back to it later or the next day. So timing yourself could really help you just focus for a certain amount of time and then come back to it later. Which leads to my third point, is to come back to it later. So if you're working on something that's a little strenuous, it's really challenging, it might be worthwhile to, after you've worked on it for a good amount of time, take a break, come back to it later, the next day, or even the day after that, with a fresh new perspective, and work on it then. The fourth tip is to set specific goals. So sometimes when we're working on a big project, the end goal might feel so far away, or it just might feel like you're working and you're never reaching that end point. So when you set specific goals, it helps you feel more accomplished. So I'm going to go with this project example. Like, let's say you're planning a project, right? And I'm just going to say project-based learning because that's what I like to focus on. So you're planning your next learning objective activity is a project-based learning project. And so obviously we know our end result is planning out all the project, all the resources, the templates, the instructions, right? So, if you break it down and say, okay, today I want to complete the instructions. That's it, right? And then tomorrow I'm going to complete 3 templates for the project. So setting like sub goals or mini goals to reach your end goal could really help. Which, by the way, shameless plug, I have many project-based learning resources on my website that you can purchase. Everything is already done for you, and that's at nancymchale.com/shop. And I also created a project-based learning, like step-by-step introduction freebie. So if you're interested in that, email me, nancy@nancymchale.com, and ask for it, and I will send it right over. The fifth step is to remind yourself the fifth step is similar to the fourth step in setting those sub goals, but it's to break up the project and the planning. So let's say you have a big project, like let's say you're trying, if you're an administrator and you're trying to come up with a new school-wide plan, right? So that's going to be a big project. There's going to be a lot of to-dos. There's going to be many, like a lot of different parts of this school-wide plan. So break up the planning, right? So say, today I'm going to work on this component, and break it up by the day or the week, and come up with specific to-dos. So instead of your major to-dos being, finish this school-wide plan, say, well, today I'm going to work on the mission statement and the overview of the plan. And The second day, I'm going to work on these two parts. So break it up as much as you can and have those specific goals. And the sixth tip is to remind yourself of the end goal. And I actually, like, this is something I kind of did naturally, since I could remember being a college student. I just remember, those long nights of studying or working on an essay or whatever it might be. And I don't know why I vividly remember myself. I had my notebook right. I was laying down on my bed on my stomach and I was writing, and I was, struggling. I had those moments, right, where I'm just like, I stop and I'm like, oh, I want to finish, right? And I remember writing in my notebook, it will all pay off at the end. And, you know, I I've always wanted to be a teacher, and I knew obviously finishing college I had to do that to become a teacher. So I always reminded myself that it will all be worth it in the end. And I wrote it down. I remember writing it down. And so reminding yourself of the end goal could really help. Like with my major project, like this is something I've always wanted to do, and I'm reminding myself of that goal every day because the process is hard, right? And I know though that doing hard things will make us better people, will make us stronger and advance, right? So just always remember what is the end goal and write it down. Write on a post-it, put it somewhere, remind yourself constantly your end goal. I hope this was helpful. And if it was, I would really appreciate if you could take a few minutes to rate and share this podcast with your friends that you think might help you, be helpful for them. Um, I I also I also wanted to remind you of the workshops that I give. I give workshops on, all my workshops are centered around helping students think critically, helping students analyze, problem solve, be more creative. And I have different topics that all lend themselves to that major concept, right? So I have topics on, of course, incorporating project-based learning, implementing STEAM in your classroom, tailoring differentiation, tailoring curriculum. So I have different topics such as those, and I do workshops virtually and in person. So if that is something that you are looking for your school, please email me at nancy@nancymchale.com. And one more thing, don't forget to sign up for my weekly newsletter. I send it out every Wednesday, honestly, sometimes Thursday if I'm a little bit behind. But those newsletters give you access to my library of freebies. And I give tips and motivation, and it has a podcast in there. So if you ever miss it in your podcast feed, the link will be right there. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that this was helpful. If it was, please let me know. I love to hear from my listeners. Have a fantastic rest of the week, and I'll talk to you next time.